Welcome to one of week 7's lecture videos for Psychology 5342, Teaching Psychology, based on McKeachie's Teaching Tips 14th edition, Chapter 10, Assigning Grades and What Do They Mean? So when assigning grades, inadvertently, it is a method of communication. We have to make sure that every assessment that we are using in our classroom is a valid measure of measuring what you intend for it to measure. So as you are creating or using the publisher's assessments for your course in teaching psychology, just make sure that those questions are actually going to measure what you intend for it to measure at the level of Bloom's taxonomy that you intend for your students to achieve. Do you want them just to remember concepts? Do you want them to be able to apply the concepts to a case study? Do you want them to think analytically about the concept? What do you want to measure? And then find assessment tools that will measure exactly what you are asking. Is it for them to just know how to go through tests and eliminating wrong answer choices? Are you testing for their ability to take a test? Whatever the case may be, make sure that your assessment is valid and that it is measuring what you want it to measure. The second thing that we need to consider in our assessments or assessing our students is if the test is reliable, meaning that it produces fairly consistent results either across time or across multiple graders. We have found through research that our multiple choice tests are indeed reliable means of assessing our students. However, if you use a rubric, your essays and projects and hands-on experiences or group activities or discussion boards, all of those things can be made reliable if you have a very well-detailed rubric that you will use with your assignments. So we don't want to just rely on the multiple choice question that we could have on a test or the items. We also want to implement varied ways of assessing our students, and one way to make those varied ways reliable is to use a rubric. And the third thing, we want to look at what the assigned grade is communicating to the students, what's being communicated to you as the instructor, and if that communication aligns. If not, then there may have to be some restructuring of point value, some restructuring of how the skill is being assessed or how you are assessing the competency of the content, but things would have to be adjusted to make sure that what is being communicated as a grade between you and the student aligns. And so when we look at the grading scale or we look at the letter grade assigned, if a student receives an A, it means that all major and minor goals of that assessment has been achieved. This is a good way to have a time of conversation in your class, or to have even the goals of achievement for your students before you even give the test. So perhaps you want to give your students something to study or a guide of how to study. Give the students the goals of the chapter, the goals of the lecture that will ultimately be assessed on the test. And so in that manner, we are able to see that the grade assigned of what they have achieved matches to what you expect of them, how they performed on the assessment, and if everything lines up. If a student receives a B, it means that all the major goals have been achieved, but some minor ones were not achieved. How are you going to make up for those minor ones, or will it be spiraled into the next lesson? Is it an overlap in content that they'll see it again? So again, as you have this assessment tool, make sure that what has not been achieved for any one student, that the student will have the opportunity to either see it again or you'll present multiple opportunities for the students to achieve those minor goals that they did not achieve the first time. When a student receives a C, it says that all major goals have been achieved, but many minor ones were not achieved. Again, how are we going to make sure that any one student will have an opportunity to make up for those minor goals that ultimately become major goals as they progress through the course? And then a D, a few major goals were achieved, and the student is not prepared for any advanced work. This is where we have that tape off of we have to do something different as instructors. What does that look like for you in your class? And we'll get more into that as we progress through this slide or progress through this lecture video. But these are just some things to think about as we are progressing to make those decisions before you even enter into the classroom. And then F, if a student receives an F as a grade, then that means none of the major goals were achieved. And then that'll be a different conversation based on the individual student, or a different conversation if this is an entire class grade. So what does the grade mean? We have the grade on paper, but again, what does the grade really mean to you as the instructor? Are you trying to identify the best students in the group that you may want to do or give them some other responsibility, or is it to indicate what each student has achieved? And so we want to make sure that our teaching, that our curriculum, that the access to our curriculum is equitable, so that we are looking for what the student has achieved and not the best students in the group. There is a place, perhaps, of finding the best, but overall, our focus we want our focus to be on achievement and not just identifying those students that have done a good job. We don't want it to be performance-based. We want it to be learning and knowing what they have achieved in the class. So how can we do that? One of the ways is by reducing student anxiety. We have found through research that students are most motivated when they feel they can achieve success with a reasonable effort. This is where you as the instructor have a major role. What can you do to give students a shot at achievement every time they encounter your class? Whether it is a writing, whether it's discussion board, whether it is answering a question prompt, every time they interact with your class, do they have or are they receiving opportunities for achievement? Is it attainable for every student every time they meet in your class? Even if they don't reach it, is it still reachable for them to achieve success with a reasonable effort? Research has found that when there is a understanding or perception that they can achieve success with a reasonable effort, and if they do not put forth the effort, they understand that it's not about you as the instructor. They take the responsibility of saying, I did not do my best, and they know that with a little more effort, they can achieve success. Another way to reduce student anxiety is to use teaching strategies that will help students do well in the first place. And so it's not really about all the extra credit opportunities or ways to receive grades on a curve or how you're going to cushion their grades. They really just want to know, what do they have to do well in the first place? What are you expecting from them? They don't want necessarily all of the tokens kind of given to them. They want to achieve on their own. They just need to know, what do you want from them? So as the instructor, this is an opportunity for you to give all of your details and to even provide exemplars, maybe from past students or your own completing of the assignment, and then showing them what you are looking for in your exemplar. They just want to know, what does it take for them to achieve, not for mimicry or not for duplication, but they just want to know what are the guidelines, the parameters, if you will, of what you are looking for, and they have the creativity within them, the innate creativity to do something that reflects their own personality, that demonstrates their own understanding of what they have learned in your course. And then the third way to reduce student anxiety is to keep students informed during the course about where they stand, which means for you as the instructor to keep up with grading. If the students understand where they are very capable of calculating what they need to do to keep up and to maintain that grade. They just want to know where they stand. And so as the instructor, this is where we have the responsibility to be very good bookkeepers, if you will, of making sure every grade has been done so in a timely manner that the student can monitor his or her own grades. And so we're spiraling back to that question of grades versus learning. We know that there are some learners that we have in our classes that are pursuing goals that are focused on appearing competent rather than actually learning anything. They just want to do enough to get by. They just want to pass the class because it's in the list of courses to take on their degree. They're not really interested in the content. As we have talked before, as the instructor, you have the wonderful opportunity where you have the advantage of conforming and of having buy-in into your course, that you can change that student from just wanting to get by to really enjoying the content that you are delivering by the way that you are delivering the content. In an online setting, for the instructor, this would be appropriate, or you would see this in the discussion board. How you tailor the questions can allow the student to connect to your content that will take them beyond of just wanting to get the grade to really enjoying the course. So in the online setting, your discussion board is like your classroom. Without your being there, but how you frame it is how students will engage with it. Some students we know are pursuing mastery goals, in which they really want to learn the content and they're not really conscious, or they're not really interested in just attaining a grade, because they know that if they are interested in the content, then the grade will follow. And so we want to make sure that we are focusing our students on not just the grades, but on the learning of the content so that they have mastery of it. And so here are some suggestions. Again, focus on meaningful activities that students can see are related to their own future. This helps them to focus on becoming skillful rather than on simply earning a grade. Number 2, make the learning interesting through the use of variety and novelty. The goal is to distract the students from focusing on the grades by making the learning worthwhile in and of itself. Number 3, make the learning challenging but doable. Challenge is a big source of motivation for students, but only if there is a hope of success. And lastly, number 4, give learners some choice in what they are going to do. So again, if you're going back to our discussion board, perhaps you can give several question stems that your students can choose from to apply or to demonstrate their learning. Focus on individual improvement. And so this is where your feedback makes a lot of sense. This is where your feedback goes into motivation. Your feedback also goes into learning in the overall grade that your student would achieve. Make evaluation private. And so on those different assessment tools that you have, again, this is where feedback is important, to tell the student why they went wrong or how they went wrong or how they can do better. But again, it's a private dialogue between you and the student, especially in our online setting, that will now give them the hope that next time I know what I need to do, even if the content is different. Again, with that feedback part of with your assessment tools, to recognize effort and progress from the first test to the second test. Write in your feedback how the students progressed and that you recognize their effort and you see where they're going. Again, this is just a coaching, if you will, that will give the students hope for the next time. And as you do that, you're able to help the students see mistakes as opportunities for learning. If you can, provide the resources, or if it's not too much for you to do, again, this is helping them succeed. Refer them back to the chapter where the information came from. Ask the student to reread the information to provide another answer, or allow the student to give you a summary of the questions that they did not answer well. Again, this is not just about assigning a grade, but it is allowing for learning and achievement. And then the last one is encourage collaborative learning. This could be done simply by taking one or two of those questions and putting them into, again, your discussion board in the online class, and allowing the students to interact about why the question is right and why some of the answers were wrong, and how did you arrive at the answer that you arrived at, and the justifying of your answer. Again, it creates a collaborative learning environment, and the outcome is learning and not just the end all with just having a grade assigned. The bottom line is that grades are very important. We know that grades are indicative of academic performance in our class. It is reported at the university level. And grades, that transcript that is being sent out to employers and to admissions and to committees and those that are vested in that individual for whatever the reason may be, grades are important. We know that there are some leadership positions that you have to have a certain GPA in order to attain or to hold that leadership office. And so we know that grades are important, but we don't want grades to be detrimental to the point of there's no assistance in helping the student rise to a level of achievement. You are the instructor. You are the first line of communication. You are the first coach in this setting. And so as we have had several videos within the course, as you are reading in your textbook, as you're looking at the articles that have been placed in the course shell, think of yourself as a coach, as an instructor, that you are able to help your students gain perspective about their own learning, and then you give them a roadmap that will help them get to that end goal by assessing them along the way to see what they have achieved, to see what they have learned, to see what they understand, and then giving them an opportunity for them to make those corrections and to keep moving. And so again, as you are in the position of becoming an instructor, think of how you are going to help your students reach the academic goals that you set forth for them every time they enter into your class, whether it's online or whether it is residential. And if there is a student that needs more attention beyond what you are able to give them, then if nothing else, be resourceful. What can they do? Where can they go to reach that level of achievement that will help them not only in your course, but for the rest of their academic and for the rest of their careers? So again, be that face that will help them reach the goals.